My brother and I are going to be miners, and our heritage is mining.
God.
Imagine a mystery that's been around for centuries, filled with tales of buried treasure, secret manuscripts, and legendary artifacts.
There she be. Yep. St. Maya.
This is the story of Oak Island, a small piece of land in Nova Scotia that has captured the imagination of treasure hunters since the 1700s. People have long believed that Oak Island holds incredible treasures, everything from pirate loot and Shakespeare's lost works to the Holy Grail and the Ark of the Covenant, possibly hidden by the Knights Templar. But now, after centuries of speculation and countless expeditions, the mystery of Oak Island has finally been solved. Early excavation. Very little confirmed information is available about early treasure hunting on Oak Island, so most stories are based on word of mouth from the late 18th century. It was only many years later that publishers began investigating these stories. The first printed story about treasure found by a settler named Daniel McGinnis appeared in 1857. 5 years later, one of the original diggers gave a statement about the original story and the activities of the Onslow and Truro companies. The earliest story by settlers, first recorded in 1863, involves a dying sailor from Captain Kidd's crew. He claimed that a treasure worth £2 million was buried on the island. The most popular discovery story says that around 1799, Daniel McGinnis found a depression in the ground while searching for a farm location. Believing this depression matched the Captain Kidd story, he got help from John Smith and Anthony Vaughan. They dug and found flagstones 2 feet down. Later accounts mention oak platforms every 10 feet, but the earliest stories only talk about marks at these intervals. The stories also mention tool marks on the pit walls, and the soil was loose, unlike the surrounding ground. The 3 men reportedly stopped digging at 30 feet due to superstitious dread. Another version of the story says all 4 people involved were teenagers, and McGinnis first found the depression in 1795 during a fishing trip. This version ends with them giving up after digging as much as they could. Around 1802, a group called the Onslow Company reportedly sailed from central Nova Scotia to Oak Island to find hidden treasure. They dug down to about 90 feet, finding layers of logs, or marks, every 10 feet, as well as layers of charcoal, putty, and coconut fiber, and a large stone inscribed with symbols. The pit then flooded with 60 feet of water for unknown reasons, and the excavation was abandoned after workers tried to recover the treasure by digging a tunnel from a second shaft that also flooded. The last major company of this early period was the Truro Company, formed in 1849 by investors. They redug the pit to 86 feet, but it flooded again. They then drilled 5 boreholes into the original shaft. The drill went through a spruce platform at 98 feet, then hit layers of oak, some metal in pieces, another spruce layer, and clay for 7 feet. The platform was hit twice, each time bringing up metal, wood, and coconut fiber. Another shaft was dug 109 feet deep northwest of the original shaft, with a tunnel branching off to intersect the treasure. However, seawater flooded this new shaft, and workers thought the water was connected to the sea because the flooded pit rose and fell with the tides. The Truro Company then focused on excavating a nearby cove, where they found a flood tunnel system. When they failed to stop the flooding, they dug one final shaft 118 feet deep with a tunnel under the original shaft. During this excavation, the bottom of the original shaft collapsed. It was later speculated that the treasure had fallen through the new shaft into a deep void, causing the new shaft to flood. The Truro Company ran out of funds and dissolved around 1851. The first published account was in 1857 when the Liverpool transcript mentioned a group digging for Captain Kidd's treasure on Oak Island. This was followed by a more detailed account by a justice of the peace in Chester, Nova Scotia, in 1861, also published in the transcript under the title The Oak Island Folly, expressing skepticism about the treasure. The first full account of events on the island appeared on October 16, 1862, when Anthony Vaughan's memories were recorded by the transcript. This account included the activities of the Onslow and Truro companies, the mysterious stone, and the Truro Company's auger hitting wooden platforms and metal in pieces. These accounts, based on Liverpool transcript articles, also appeared in the Nova Scotian and the British Colonist, and are mentioned in an 1895 book called A History of Lunenburg County. The Oak Island Association. In 1861, a group called the Oak Island Association tried to dig up the original pit on Oak Island. They dug it down to 88 feet and also dug 2 new shafts. One shaft missed its target, a supposed flood tunnel, while the other connected with the original shaft at about 105 feet deep. However, both shafts filled with water when they hit the flood tunnel again. One of the wooden platforms at 98 feet collapsed and fell to a lower level, causing other platforms to fall too. Any treasure, along with about 10,000 board feet of wood, ended up around 119 feet deep. In the fall of 1861, the first accidental death happened when a pump engine exploded, killing a worker. This was first mentioned in a book from 1863, and then more details about the death came out 5 years later. In the spring of 1862, the group dug another shaft 107 feet deep, parallel to the original one. They tried to pump water out of the original shaft, reaching 103 feet deep, but the pumps couldn't handle the floodwater. They did find some old tools left by earlier diggers. In 1864, they made one last effort to reach the money pit but hit the flood tunnels again. By then, the original shaft was weakened by salt water, and workers refused to enter it. Mining engineers inspected the shaft and declared it unsafe. The group ran out of money and stopped their efforts. In 1866, another group called the Oak Island El Dorado Company, or the Halifax Company, formed to search for the treasure. By then, Oak Island was full of shafts, holes, and tunnels from previous treasure hunters. When they couldn't stop the flood tunnels at Smith's Cove, they focused on the main shaft. They drilled exploratory holes and found bits of wood, soft clay, and blue mud, but nothing valuable. The group gave up in 1867. In 1896, an unknown group came to the island with steam pumps and boring equipment. Although the pumps couldn't keep water out of the side shaft, they took some boring samples. One sample had a tiny piece of sheepskin parchment with 2 letters, Vi or Y, written in Indian ink. In 1897, a worker named Maynard Kaiser died in an accident when he fell to his death. In 1898, the group poured red paint into the flooded pit, reportedly showing 3 exit holes around the island. Smith's Cove. In August 1909, Captain Henry L. Bowdoin arrived on Oak Island as part of the Old Gold Salvage Group, which included Franklin D. Roosevelt. They focused on the money pit. Divers were sent down, but nothing interesting was found. Bowdoin also looked at Smith's Cove, where people had reported seeing drain tunnels and a ring bolt in a rock. They discovered the remains of an old dam from 1850, but nothing else. Bowdoin also checked a stone cipher in Halifax, but it was just a hard basalt rock with no symbols. The team left the island in November 1909. In 1928, a New York newspaper ran a story about Oak Island, sparking interest. William Chappell dug a new shaft in 1931, hoping to find the original pit. At 127 feet deep, they found an axe, an anchor, and a pickaxe, but the area was cluttered with debris from past digs, making it hard to identify their origins. Gilbert Hedden, a steel company owner, read the 1928 article and became intrigued by the engineering challenges. He made 6 trips to the island, collected books and articles, and even consulted an author in England. After buying part of the island in 1935, he began his own digs, but found nothing significant. In 1959, Robert Restall, his son and partner Carla Gracer, started working on Oak Island. In 1965, they attempted to seal a storm drain in Smith's Cove and dug a 27-foot shaft. Tragically, on August 17, Restall was overcome by toxic gas. His son, Grazer, and 2 others also died trying to save him. That same year, Robert Dunfield leased part of the island. He used a large crane to dig a 134-foot deep and 100-foot wide pit, building a causeway to transport the equipment. His lease ended in August 1966. In January 1967, Daniel C. Blankenship, David Tobias, Robert Dunfield, and Fred Nolan formed a syndicate to explore Oak Island. In 1969, Blankenship and Tobias created the Triton Alliance and bought most of the island. They dug a new 235-foot shaft called Borehole 10X, where they claimed to see chests, human remains, and tools through a camera. However, the images were unclear and unverified. The shaft later collapsed, and work stopped due to a lack of funds and partnership issues. In 1979, the island was featured in an episode of the television show In Search Of. In 1983, Triton Alliance sued Frederick Nolan over land ownership. Nolan's ownership was confirmed in 1985, but he had to pay damages for affecting Triton's tourism. Triton lost the appeal in 1989, though Nolan's damages were reduced. During the 1990s, exploration slowed due to legal disputes and financial problems. In 2005, part of the island was up for sale for $7 million. The Oak Island Tourism Society hoped the Canadian government would buy it, but a group of American drillers did instead. In June 1996, Robert S. Young bought a 4-acre piece of the island from Fred Nolan. This land remained untouched. Young documented his finds, including a 1781 Spanish silver coin, on his website. He passed away on October 28, 2020, and the land went to his estate. Brothers Rick and Marty Lagina. In April 2006, it was announced that brothers Rick and Marty Lagina from Michigan bought 50% of Oak Island Tours from David Tobias for an undisclosed amount of money. The other half of the company is owned by Dan Blankenship. A year before this purchase, Center Road Developments, along with Alan Kosterzewa and Brian Urbach, who are part of the Michigan Group, bought Lot 25 on Oak Island from David Tobias for around $230,000. After buying the shares, the Michigan Group, together with Blankenship, decided to start working again on Oak Island, hoping to find buried treasure and solve the island's mystery. In July 2010, Blankenship and the other owners of Oak Island Tours announced on their website that they had received a treasure hunting license from the Nova Scotia Department of Natural Resources and the Department of Tourism, Culture and Heritage. This license allowed them to search for treasure until December 31, 2010. After that date, the departments replaced the treasure hunting license with the Oak Island Treasure Act. This new act, effective from January 1, 2011, allows treasure hunting to continue on the island as long as the hunters have a license from the Minister of Natural Resources. The Lagina brothers' exploration efforts have been featured on the reality television show The Curse of Oak Island, which has been airing on the History Channel since 2014. Mysterious markings. In 1862, an article in the Halifax Sun and Advisor described a stone underground with mysterious markings. J.B. McCully, in a letter from June 2, 1862, recounted the stone's discovery during an excavation in the early 1800s. McCully mentioned layers of charcoal and putty, and said the stone, found at 80 feet, was square, 2 feet long, and about a foot thick, with several carved symbols. In 1863, another newspaper article claimed the stone was part of the chimney of an old house near the excavation site. A year later, a different article said the stone was kept by the Smith family. On January 2, 1864, John Hunter Duvar from the Historical Society of Nova Scotia contacted treasure hunter George Cook. Cook, in a letter dated January 27, 1864, said Smith built the stone into his chimney in 1824. Cook saw the stone around 1850 and described the markings as rough and likely made with a blunt tool. By 1864, the chimney had been enclosed in wood, hiding the stone. An undated letter from William Blair, written after 1893, mentioned Jefferson W. MacDonald, who first told Blair about Oak Island in 1893. MacDonald, a carpenter, worked under George Mitchell, who supervised the Oak Island Association formed in 1861. MacDonald said he and others took down a partition in Smith's house to examine the stone in the fireplace. The symbols were visible, but no one could decipher them. James DeMille, in his 1872 novel The Treasure of the Seas, recounted his time as a summer resident on Oak Island in the late 1860s. In the story, characters find the stone removed from the chimney upon their arrival. DeMille noted that no one had decoded the mysterious symbols, which an innkeeper described as faint and irregular. Skeptics thought the markings were accidental scratches rather than an inscription. Reginald Vanderbilt Harris, in his 1958 book, The Oak Island Mystery, wrote that the stone was moved to Halifax around 1865 to the 1866. Harris did not provide a source for this claim. The next mention of the stone was in an 1893 Oak Island Treasure Company prospectus, which stated the stone was moved to Halifax, where James Liechty reportedly deciphered it to read, 10 feet below are 2 million pounds buried. On August 19, 1911, Collier's magazine published Captain H. L. Bodoin's first-hand account of the stone, then at Creighton's Bookbindery in Halifax. Bodoin described the stone as hard basalt with no visible symbols. He was skeptical that the symbols had worn off due to the stone's hardness. Charles B. Driscoll's 1929 book, The Oak Island Treasure, based on second-hand accounts, stated that the stone was shown to everyone visiting Oak Island. Smith had placed the stone in his fireplace with the characters facing out for visitors to see. After Smith's death, the stone was moved to Halifax, then to J.B. McCully's home in Truro, where it was exhibited to many people. Eventually, it ended up in a bookbinder's workshop and was used as a base for beating leather. Over time, the inscription nearly wore away, and the stone was later seen in a Halifax bookstore, but its final fate remains unknown. A.O. Creighton, part of the 1866 expedition, reportedly moved the stone from Smith's home to Creighton's bookbindery. Harry W. Marshall, in 1935, recalled seeing the stone as a boy. He noted that someone had carved the initials J.M. on it, but there was no other evidence of an inscription. The stone was used for various purposes in the bindery and left behind when the business closed in 1919. One researcher claimed the cipher on the stone translated to 40 feet below, 2 million pounds lie buried. This translation first appeared in Edward Rowe Snow's 1949 book, True Tales of Buried Treasure. Snow said he received the symbols from A.T. Kempton of Cambridge, Massachusetts, who had gotten them from a now-deceased schoolteacher. Money Pit. The mystery of Oak Island centers around a hole called the Money Pit. This pit was discovered in the summer of 1795 by Daniel McInnes, John Smith, and Anthony Vaughan. People hoped to find treasure there, which is why they named it the Money Pit. However, instead of finding riches, many people ended up spending a lot of money trying to uncover its secrets. We don't know for sure if there's any treasure at the bottom of the Money Pit. Some believe it might still be there, while others think it was taken out long ago. Another theory is that the pit is a clever trick to hide the real treasure, which could be somewhere else on the island. Over the years, people have dug deep into the Money Pit. They've found several layers of oak logs, possibly more than 2 or 3, and marks made of putty or charcoal every 10 feet. These layers and marks add to the mystery of what might be below. Starting in 1804, more detailed records were kept about what was found in the pit. One of the most interesting discoveries happened at a depth of 80 to 90 feet. Searchers found a stone with strange symbols carved into it, lying face down. This stone added to the intrigue of the pit. After finding the inscribed stone, searchers faced a major challenge: water. According to a well-known book called The Oak Island Mystery by R.V. Harris, no water was found until they reached 90 feet deep. But then, the ground became softer and water started to appear. At 93 feet, the water increased, making it difficult to dig. By the next morning, the pit was filled with 60 feet of water, stopping their progress. The searchers had accidentally triggered a trap set by the original builders of the Money Pit. This trap, known as the flood tunnel, made it almost impossible to continue digging. Despite many attempts to get around the water, the flood tunnel kept the pit filled. People have many questions about the Money Pit. Did the original builders have a way to stop the water from flooding the pit? Is the actual treasure hidden in another chamber above the water level but still out of sight? Is there another entrance to the treasure chamber that doesn't involve the Money Pit? Is the Money Pit just a decoy to distract treasure hunters? And if so, why was a block and tackle left behind, if it really existed? What if whatever was put in the pit was never meant to be taken out again? These questions remain unanswered, adding to the mystery and fascination of Oak Island and the Money Pit. Despite many efforts and lots of money spent, the secrets of the Money Pit continue to elude treasure hunters. Stone detail. Reports on the stone's size varied, saying it was between 2 to 3 feet long and 12 to 16 inches wide. The stone looked like dark Swedish granite with a hint of olive color, which was not common in the area. People have tried to recreate the symbols said to be on the stone, but these images mostly come from the memory of someone who saw the stone long ago. There are no tracings or rubbings of the original symbols, even though hundreds of people reportedly saw the stone while it was with the Smith family. The last time anyone saw the stone was when it was displayed in a Halifax merchant's window to attract buyers for shares. The mysterious inscription on the stone has fascinated researchers and codebreakers. The most well-known and widely accepted translation was given by Reverend A.T. Kempton in 1949. Recently, a similar code was found by the late Zena Halpern, a researcher of the Knights Templar from New York. This new find, called La Formule, offers new insights into the Oak Island mystery. La Formule appears to fit with the Kempton cipher when translating the symbols into French, and adds more letters to help complete the code. Security system. Oak Island's security system is the water surrounding it, and many people who have searched there have found it incredibly hard to remove this water. The designers of the Money Pit laid out a well-thought-out trap. When the pit reached a certain depth, it unlocked an airlock. This allowed a tunnel system to bring in water from the sea and fill the pit up to the level of the tide. Some folks might think, well, obviously, if you dig deep enough, you'll hit the water, like digging a well. But the water in the Money Pit wasn't from underground. It was salt water from the sea. And despite digging other holes nearby even deeper, they didn't find any water. Once the early searchers figured out that it was salt water, they tried to find out where it was coming from. This led them to Smith's Cove, where they made some important discoveries. They noticed that when the tide went out, water leaked from the shore at different spots. When they dug deeper, they found a clever system of drains made from boxes and filled with a filter made of fiber, eelgrass, and beach stones. This system was designed to keep water flowing into the pit without getting blocked. It was simple, but really effective. They found so much of this fiber that they had to stack it on the beach like hay. They later discovered that these drains led to an underground tunnel that went about 460 feet from Smith's Cove to a level 101 feet deep in the pit, sloping at about a 22.5-degree angle. The tunnel was narrow and tall, similar to the ones found in old mines. After digging, they filled the tunnels with round rocks and beach stones to stop them from collapsing, which would block the water flow. There's also a suspicion of another tunnel leading from the South Shore Cove to an even lower part of the money pit, but it hasn't been proven yet. At different times during the years of investigating, they used clay and dyes to prove for sure that there was a connection between the sea and the money pit. Explorers who were interested in the Oak Island mystery. Among those intrigued by the mystery of Oak Island are individuals who believe in psychic abilities or the paranormal. One such figure is Harold Sherman, who employed what he called psychic archaeology in an attempt to uncover the secrets of the island. According to Sherman, the treasure was purportedly buried by French explorers in 1746 as they fled from British forces. He claimed it included valuable items such as gold jewels, religious artifacts, and documents related to the origins of Freemasonry. Another individual drawn to the mystery of Oak Island was Lorraine Warren, who used a device known as a ghost box to communicate with spirits on the island. According to Warren, the island was haunted by the specters of pirates, soldiers, and treasure hunters who had met their demise there. Similarly, Michael Bodine, who identified as a psychic and healer, claimed to have sensed the presence of the treasure and its protectors through his clairvoyant and clairsentient abilities. Despite the earnest efforts of Sherman, Warren, Bodine, and others, the alleged curse of Oak Island has persisted, with tragic consequences. Reports indicate that at least 6 individuals have lost their lives in pursuit of the elusive treasure, underscoring the dangers associated with the quest. In addition to those who approached the mystery from a paranormal perspective, there were also scientific endeavors aimed at unlocking the secrets of Oak Island. Notably, Dr. Ian Spooner, a geoscientist from Acadia University, conducted extensive analyses of soil samples taken from various boreholes in the area known as the Money Pit. His findings revealed elevated levels of silver in some of the samples, suggesting the presence of a significant deposit of silver coins or bars hidden beneath the island's surface. The discovery of silver holds profound significance due to its historical value and widespread use as a medium of exchange, adornment, and artistic expression. Uncovering silver on Oak Island could potentially validate the efforts of treasure hunters and provide crucial clues regarding the enigmatic signals and structures encountered in the Money Pit area. More discoveries. In the late 1800s, the Oak Island Treasure Company encountered a cement-like barrier at 153 feet underground, behind which lay a parchment, potentially linking the island to Shakespearean manuscripts hidden by Francis Bacon. Decades later, the Laginas unearthed more parchment fragments near the Money Pit, raising the tantalizing possibility of further connections to Shakespeare's lost works. A reported Roman sword discovery in 2015 turned out to be a modern replica, dispelling notions of Roman presence in North America. The discovery of a wooden structure with Roman numerals at Smith's Cove, dated to 1769, suggested a pre-existing treasure operation before the Money Pit discovery. Fred Nolan's discovery of boulders arranged in a cross pattern hinted at Templar involvement on the island, fueling speculations about hidden Templar treasure. A Templar cross-adorned coin found near the Money Pit provided further evidence of the Templar presence and potential treasure on Oak Island. The finding of a lead cross near Smith's Cove, with religious carvings akin to those in a French prison where Templar knights were held, strengthened the Templar connection. Additional Templar relics, including a medieval crossbow bolt, further bolstered the theory of Templar activity on Oak Island. The discovery of a copper coin in the swamp raised questions about possible Spanish treasure, while a silver ring hinted at European origins and a potential link to sunken treasure ships. Speculations about a sunken treasure ship were fueled by the discovery of a ship brace under stress and signs of fire in the swamp. Numerous ship spikes found across the island suggested the presence of a docking wharf used for unloading treasure. Artifacts discovered near Samuel Ball's former residence, including coins and buttons, led to speculation about his potential involvement in a treasure discovery. The uncovering of a man-made stone tunnel near Ball's home sparked theories about a hidden treasure vault. A decorative keyhole discovered during metal detecting hinted at the presence of treasure chests, possibly belonging to Captain James Anderson. Excavation of a trench in an area marked as an ancient dump site yielded pottery fragments, hinting at past human activity. The identification of a hatch matching an old map on the island's western side suggested a possible alternative entrance to the Money Pit. The finding of a silver button at Isaac Point, though not uncommon for the island's historical use as livestock grazing land, added to the narrative of past human activity. We hope you enjoyed this video. See you in the next one.